welcome all members and officers to the meeting of the Licensing Committee, which, due to health and safety reasons, is being held virtually. The meeting is recorded and will be available via the Council's website to be viewed as practical as following the meeting as possible. Sorry. Everyone participating in the meeting will be accessing this meeting from remote locations. Please could everyone ensure all mobile phones are switched off or on silent mode. Members will have received an electronic copy of the agenda. I will ask officers to present a summary of key points for the record. The agenda can be viewed on the council website. I have to apologise, I'm all over the place. Members and officers will be speaking at various points during the meeting, and those speaking may switch their cameras on at that point. But I would ask that, with the exception of myself as chairperson, at all other times, can you keep your cameras and microphones switched off, as this will help to minimise any background noise and interference, and to ensure that the connection remains as stable as possible. Please do not use your microphone until I invite you to do so. Officers from Democratic Services will be supporting the meeting and will be monitoring the use of microphones throughout the meeting, and where necessary will mute those not being used. I would also ask the officers to introduce themselves as and when I invite them to speak during the course of the meeting. They too should ensure microphones and cameras are switched off when not in use. Thank you. I'll now go to the agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence. We don't appear to have had any apologies. Item 2, declaration of interests. Are there any declarations of interest? I take that as a no. Item 3 is the approval of the minutes from the 25th of the 5th, 22. Could I have someone to approve the minutes?
Move, Chair.
Thank you.
I second it, Chair.
Thank you. Right. Item 4 is the proposed amendment to the Hackney Carriage Vehicle Licence conditions, private hire vehicle conditions, and the Hackney Carriage and Private Hire Driver's Licence conditions. Who is reading the reports on this?
Chair, I'll be doing the reports.
Thank you, Kirsty.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to seek to amend the Hackney Carriage and Private Hire Driver Vehicle conditions, along with the dual Hackney Carriage Private Hire Driver Licence conditions, in order to promote public safety and to also to seek to approval to formally consult with the trade. So what we're proposing then is, although the Welsh Government has proposed to introduce national guidelines for taxis, it is believed that the proposed amendments that we are going to look to introduce wouldn't have a detrimental impact on that process. And in the interim, these amendments are necessary to strengthen our current conditions. So the first condition that we're looking to introduce is in relation to the vehicle licenses. A proportion of licensees or proprietors rent, lease or loan out their vehicle to other licensed drivers. And whilst our current procedures require the licensee to declare who is involved in letting the vehicle at the commencement of the license, the current conditions do not require the licensee to keep records of who's driving the vehicle throughout the duration. And this can prove difficult when we're investigating complaints. So what we're proposing is the condition that in the case of licensees, proprietors who rent, lease, hire out or loan their Hackney or private hire vehicle The licensee or proprietor shall provide and keep a suitable register in which he/she shall enter the following particulars relating to the details of the driver to whom the vehicle has been rented, hired, leased or loaned. So A, the name and address of the driver, B, the badge number and expiry date of the vehicle relating to the driver, C, the plate number and registration of the vehicle rented, hired, leased or loaned, and D, the dates and times the vehicle is rented, hired, leased or loaned by the driver. And these records shall be kept for a minimum of 12 months in chronological order and must be produced on request to an authorised officer of the council or police constable for inspection. So with this added condition, the licensing authority will be able to ensure that those who drive licensed hackney carriage or private hire vehicles can be more easily traced when investigating complaints or when we're assisting other agencies. So the second condition that we're proposing is also in relation, it's actually in relation to driver's licenses. So when issued with a hackney carriage or private hire driver's license, we can issue them for either 1 year or 3 years. And as part of their grant and renewal application, they must provide the licensing authority with an enhanced DBS certificate. This is so we can consider any convictions that they have in accordance with our policy, which is the guidance on determining the suitability of applicants and licensees in the hackney and private hire trades. So what we're proposing is the following condition be added to the license. So the licensee shall notify the council in writing within 7 days if A, he/she is convicted of an offence or receives a caution, warning, fixed penalty notice or any other kind of penalty notice. B, he/she is the subject of any pending criminal investigation, or C, if he/she is notified of the outcome of any pending criminal investigations. Now, although there are already multi-agency data sharing protocols that we have in place, where the licensing authority is notified of any issues involving taxi drivers, this would cover all types of relevant issues, not just criminal convictions, and it'll put the onus on the driver then to inform us. So the final condition that we're proposing is also in relation to the driver's licenses. Applicants and licensees are required to provide a medical certificate upon the grant and renewal of a license. Now, a medical certificate is required to ensure that drivers are in good enough health to be able to maintain public safety on the roads. They're held to a higher standard than ordinary drivers. So they are legally obliged to report any changes in their medical condition to the DVLA, but what we're proposing is to place an onus on them to also report any changes to the licensing authority. So the condition that we're proposing is the licensee shall notify the council in writing within 7 days of A, any change or deterioration to his/her health, which requires notification to the DVLA. And B, the council reserves the right to require an existing licence holder to produce a medical evidence of their continuing fitness to drive from their own GP or consultant, as deemed appropriate, during the period of licence. Such medical evidence shall be produced by the licensee to the council within 14 days of the request. And what we are requesting is that a 14-day consultation be carried out on introducing these conditions with the taxi trade. So if I just move to the recommendations. So what we're recommending today is that the committee consider the contents of the report and authorise officers to carry out a 14-day consultation with the taxi and private hire trade on, firstly, amending the hackney carriage and private hire vehicle licence conditions to include the conditions that I've detailed in 4.3 of this report. And secondly, to amend the dual hackney carriage private hire driver licence conditions to include the conditions which are detailed in paragraph 4.6 and 4.9 of the report. Thank you, Chair.
So, Chair, before you go any further on this, can I ask Kirsty a question, please? It's quite pertinent. Why is it only a 14-day consultation for such major changes to the licenses? Central government recommendation is a 12-week consultation period. Why are we only doing 14 days?
We proposed the 14-day consultation period because we are in constant communication with the trade. We felt that because this wasn't the full Welsh government, what the Welsh government are introducing, so the full standardised conditions, this is only part of it. So we thought a 14-day consultation would suffice with the trade.
Okay, so members, when you make your decision, I'm going to need to give you some further advice on that, okay?
Right, okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Pratt, you wanted to ask something?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Lewis. Yes, I'd have to agree with Andrea here on the grounds of a 14-day consultation process rather than a full one. Doesn't give a lot of time for licensees to consider their options. I would be interested in, I've got a few questions. 4.3, obviously you're asking for vehicle owners to keep a record of who they rent, lease, hire or loan out their vehicles to. What processes have we had in the past, and what problems have the local authority had in prosecuting or investigating drivers who rent, lease, hire or loan their vehicles? In regards to 4.9, if there is a deterioration in health which requires notification of the DVLA, if the DVLA deem them fit to drive, what need is there for the local authority to have that information, and why does the council want to reserve the right to pursue medical evidence of continuing fitness to drive, if that's as a start?
Thank you, Councillor. So in relation to the 4.5, the problems that we are having at the moment when we're investigating complaints is that although proprietors should advise when they get out their license currently who is insured to drive their vehicle, they do not have to currently keep records of the name and address of who's driving. It slows the process down when it comes to investigating complaints. If they were required to keep a record of the name, the badge number, the license number, the process would be much easier for our enforcement team to be able to investigate. I'm not sure specifically whether we've had any prosecutions that have failed or anything in relation to, we'd have to check with our enforcement team, but I know in our neighbouring authorities like the Vale of Glamorgan, they have had some issues in terms of the who is driving the vehicle and the proprietors not keeping records. But it would assist us greatly if we did keep the records. And it is it is going to be one of the Welsh Government's recommendations as well. In terms of the 4.9, so they do have to declare any deterioration or change to the DVLA, but taxi and private hire drivers are subject to higher medical standards than the normal driver. So what we ask is that they are Group 2, so they need to get a Group 2 medical, which is a higher standard. So I think it's the same as if you were to drive a bus or something like that. The reason they're held to a higher standard is because not only are they driving considerably more hours than the standard person, but they are responsible for carrying passengers in the car. So that's why that we're requesting that any change to their DVLA, they should also notify us, and then it may affect their Group 2 medical, and it may be that we need to look into this more seriously and have further advice taken from a GP.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Robert James.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got concerns about that 14-day. is that 14-day working day? So in a way, what we're saying is, and is it just 2 weeks? 10 days? That doesn't seem a lot
Yeah,
of time with the taxi companies that we've got.
the proposal was a 14-day consultation.
Yeah.
As I said, it was thought because you know, this is a small amendment. We're obviously in the future, we're going to be looking to drastically change the vehicle and driver license conditions in accordance with the Welsh Government's guidelines. We currently have regular meetings with the recognised trade group, and our intention is to bring it to their attention during one of the meetings and go forward from there.
Yeah, thank you, Kirsty. I totally agree with what you're doing, all right? I mean, we've got to think of the safety of the public, which I totally agree with what we're doing. But this 14-day, are we talking about 10 days really, aren't we? Are we not including Saturday and Sunday in that? Because I don't think 2 weeks, as Andrea pointed out, that's not long enough for a consultation with the taxi companies. Thank you, Chair.
Andrea, your mic is off.
Sorry, I'll give my legal advice in open session. I would under no circumstances advise you to accept the 14-day consultation period. It's against case law and it's against central government guidance. So if you're going to agree it, I would advise you to give it a longer consultation period in your decision.
Thank you. Councillor Philip Jenkins.
Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah, I was just going to concur with that as well. I think because they need to see the impact of this, and given now at the moment, and has been for considerable time, I think it's nationwide, not only county borough-wide, we have a lack of taxis and taxi drivers, and how this would impact upon extra paperwork, I do not know. And I'm little at a loss where we're on about owners. Owners sometimes lease their vehicle out. And then in turn, because that vehicle is leased to the leasee, he in turn or she in turn have other licensed drivers. If they follow in the rules, which they obviously should be doing, then who actually keeps the record? Now, the owner can then say to, keep a record, I've leased this vehicle to www. And in turn, www. has that now for a year off me, or whatever the terminology will be within that lease. And he in turn, or she in turn, will have several drivers driving, because they don't drive a 24-hour day. And they certainly will do at least, I would imagine, an 18-hour day, some of them, to earn money. That vehicle, the longer it's on the road and is earning money, is the whole purpose of the exercise as far as drivers are concerned. So who would the owners be then upon keeping a record of who drove at what particular time and where? Because I know that situation does exist, where people have leased vehicles, and then they drive days from perhaps 6 o'clock till 4 in the afternoon, and another driver will come on from 4 to 10, and they'll only do 2 days a week. And this is how they work. This is just a case scenario that I know happens, but who will be responsible in turn for that? So that's one of the questions I'd like to ask there. And this is why a longer consultation should take place. I'm mindful, obviously, the safety of everybody, and I don't think anybody would disagree with that. But we also have to be mindful of the impact it can have on businesses. At the moment, I've been told by drivers, some that have gone out of the game, I can't be bothered anymore with all the rules and regulations, the prices they put on me for MOTs and things like this. I'm not bothering to go into the market anymore. And we're finding ourselves short. Compound this then with the lack of public transport, I think it could have may well have a serious impact. Anyway, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, just to come back to that point, the proprietor would be responsible for ensuring the documentation was correct. So they would need to ensure who who is driving their vehicle at what time. And I think it's really important when we think of public safety. We need to know at all times who is driving a licensed whether a vehicle, so whether it be Hackney or private hire. You know, heaven forbid something was to happen in one of those vehicles at a specific time, and we needed to investigate a serious complaint, sexual assault, say. We would need to know who was driving that vehicle at that time. And if there are no records to check, it really puts a strain on the investigation. So yeah, for public safety reasons, I would say that that's why this condition is very important. I do understand that it is an extra request that they will need to carry out, but it's important that proprietors are responsible in taking responsibility for who is driving their vehicles, when and where.
Yeah, could I come back on that, Chair? I appreciate that in all sincerity, I do. And probably is a requirement, and it should just make sense. But what I'm saying is, if I owned a vehicle or a fleet of vehicles and I leased them out to drivers, right, who paid me then for the lease and my operating costs, because this is nothing to do with operators now, I assume, is it? Firstly, that wouldn't be anything. But because I leased the vehicle out, for instance, would I need to keep a record then from the person that I rent the vehicle out, telling me every day of the week who was driven at what time? Where would that onus lie?
With the proprietor. So if you've leased your vehicle out, then you should keep a record of who you've leased it to and when. That the person who's leased that vehicle shouldn't then be letting other people drive that vehicle. It needs to be records.
But they do, don't they? You know, they don't drive 24 hours a day. You know, I mean,
they shouldn't.
We perhaps talk in a different terminology, at least that I understand. Some rent a vehicle or lease it, for want of a word, off owners. Right? They in turn have other drivers because they can't drive. They only drive a certain number of hours a day. You don't sit in a taxi for 20 hours or whatever. You maximize that, but in turn, you let the times of the week, you let other drivers who are fully licensed and accredited to drive that vehicle, because the longer it's on the road, the more it's earning. And that's a situation I've seen, particularly in the valleys, you know. But again, I may be wrong, but that's the way I've seen it here, of course.
So yeah, what we're requesting is that if the proprietor, so every time that they lease that vehicle out to different people, the record books would need to be up to date. So for example, when the next person came to get the keys for the vehicle, they would make sure they signed the book to say who's got it. And then once they brought it back and then another person came, they would make sure that they got it back as well. So there needs to be records. Well, that's what the proposal is anyway, and that's what we're proposing to consult on.
Right. Basically would be the leasee. The leasee also would keep the record, because the proprietor would only have the one person he leased it to, whereas the other person who leased it must keep a record, you say, and then of who he has driving at different times, if at all.
It should all be going through the proprietor. Like the person that's leased the vehicle shouldn't be leasing it out to other people. It should all go through the owner of the vehicle. They are the license holders of that vehicle.
Right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Jenkins. Councillor Richard Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move the recommendation in paragraph 9, but with just one alteration to the length of consultation period to be that which is recommended by the legal officer, Andrea. This information is vital to enforcement officers who are trying to ascertain offences and things like that, and perhaps even the Inland Revenue. And I think it's an omission which really should be put right now, and I'm in full agreement with the rest of the recommendations. So I'd like to move that, but with the proviso that the consultation period is that as advised by Andrea. Thank you.
And I second.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, I think there's still a load of hands up for questions.
Yes, there is. Yeah, Councillor Bledsoe.
Thank you, Chair, and apologies for arriving a couple of minutes late.
That's okay.
I had some IT issues not linked to this meeting, but something I had to deal with. Two questions, one which I hope could be answered quite easily, and the other perhaps a matter for consideration based on the points that were just raised by Councillor Jenkins very eruditely then. The first one, it was mentioned about the requirement of the licence holder to know who's driving the vehicle at any one time. I don't want anybody in this committee to dislike me even more than they may have done, but once upon a time I used to sell used cars, and I had access to a company vehicle that was referred to as a pool car. And part of the legal requirements of that garage was that the salespeople who had access to the cars would have to keep a log of who was driving in case of a speeding ticket that may arrive. So my first question is do we know if there is a legal requirement? If we forget the licensing part of this, is there a legal requirement for these companies to know who is driving the vehicle at any one time? Because there may be cause for a company to provide the police with the information of who may be driving the vehicle. So is it a case of that should be required anyway, excluding the license, but under legal terms? And my second, I don't know if somebody wants to answer that first before I go on to my second one.
Yeah, just to say, it's a legal requirement for everybody who rents out there. So even if I let my vehicle to someone, it's up to me to make a note of the time and date. So that if there's a speeding offence and the police come and ask to identify the driver, I'm supposed to immediately be able to identify them, because that's an offence in itself. So there is a legal requirement that people must keep a record of who they lend their vehicles to. But I think this, of course, is separate because it's for taxi licensing purposes within the authority. It's different from the police aspect of it.
I apologise, my link went down. I believe that you confirmed that it's a legal requirement for every car owner to know who is driving the vehicle at any time.
Yes, that's right. But I think licensing are probably looking at it from the aspect of the police for speeding or going through red lights, etc. But of course, licensing runs its own regime within the council, and that's what they want to tighten up within the council.
But from our point of view, to request that of a license holder is not too big a deal, because legally they have to know anyway, and they have to document it anyway. It's just providing it to the authority in a licensing term rather than a legal term to South Wales Police. Yeah, there is a big difference though. If you don't give the information to the police, they can prosecute you. We can't. So no. Even though they're legally required to hold that information, us getting it from them is a different aspect without this condition on the license. Thank you very much, Andrea. And the second point is more of a general one, more around policy on this. This is a further requirement of license holders in order for us to license their carriage. Is there an opportunity that, and I fully take on board Councillor Jenkins's point, that people are leaving this industry. We're all probably seeing our residents complain on social media or other means about, they've come out of such and such at 11 o'clock at night and I had to wait 40 minutes for a taxi. I ended up walking home, and there is general dissatisfaction with the amount of people who are leaving the industry. Is there something that we can do as an authority that may make it easier on the license holders at the same time that we may decide to bring in these additional expectations of them? And the one thing that springs to mind is the limits on the number of garages that can be used for MOTs, which I know causes a great deal of concern for some license holders and can create backlog. Is there something that as an authority we can do at the same time that almost like a give and take situation, that we're expecting more from license holders, but we can also make their jobs easier in other ways at the same time to make this an industry that isn't hemorrhaging people leaving the industry, but may encourage people to join it whilst we're also able to ask for more expectations.
Unfortunately,
That's-
Councillor, because this matter is in the report as it stands, so you either accept it or you don't. The MOT is an entirely different situation. I know we have lots of requests for information on that point, and the policy as it stands in the authority that they have to have it through via our registered garage. So you know, that is not on the table for you today. That's for another day, unfortunately.
That's fine. I think it was more of a, I didn't think we could do it here, but that was more of an overview of what we're doing as a license rather than what we can do here today. So thank you for that, Andrea. Thank you.
Councillor Bledsoe, just to let you know, there is actually a meeting with SRS on Friday on this matter.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. Thank you, Chair.
All right. Councillor Pratt, please.
Yeah, no, you've just answered my question for me. Thank you, Councillor Lewis. But I was going to say, though, yes, I agree that this isn't a place to be discussing this at this time. I would like to support Councillor Bledsoe in his view of looking at how we can help the industry instead of just impugnating it further. But yes, your point well made. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Right, I got Councillor Robert James, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. On the case of named drivers, didn't we have a case in our last meeting where a taxi proprietor refused to give the name, or he couldn't find the name of this taxi driver? The police prosecuted him. He had quite a hefty fine. And the reason the next time then he applies for a license, that is on his record.
Yeah, that's right, correct, Councillor. That is the case with any taxi driver who refuses to identify the driver. They'll have a conviction and then they'll come back before the committee for disciplinary.
That's right. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Barrow. Councillor Barrow, your mic is off.
Yeah, 15 years ago, they wanted the licensing committee to put a limit on how many taxis could be out because there was too many. So he wanted us to put a stop to bringing new drivers in. Now it's gone the opposite. So sometimes you can't keep the taxi drivers happy.
Right, okay.
Because going back then, we are going through a scenario in Bridgend now what big cities have been going through for years, who could never get a taxi. We were lucky in Bridgend because a lot of people are taking their lumpers and buying taxis. And now they've come to the age now where they want to retire. And I know a lot of taxi drivers now, they only go out about 5 hours a day, 6 hours a day. That's quite sufficient. They're earning good coin, the ones I've been talking to, so that's all I got to say on the matter.
Right, thank you for that.
That's all right.
Anybody else got any questions? No. Right, I think Andrea, oh, there you are. Did you want to speak to everyone now, Andrea?
Yes, only to say that it's entirely a matter for you, obviously, it's your decision, but my recommendation would be a 12-week consultation if you feel that you want to go with the decision to approve and consult. There's
Right.
someone's hand up, Chair.
Yeah, I think that was Councillor Ian Williams.
Actually, it was an accident, but I will say, yeah, I concur with Andrea. I'm all in favour of the changes to the licence, but I concur that it should be a 12-week consultation period, as 14 days is far, far too short. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Pratt.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, fully support 12-week consultation. I'll stand corrected, but I don't know how many licensed drivers are in our committees, and if there's something that the industry has concerns on, it needs to be given the proper time to have it heard. Thank you.
Right, okay, so I think the first thing we need to do then is just to take a vote on this consultation period. Anybody who would like to look at doing a 12-week consultation, can you please let yourself be known?
Chair, I'll move for 12 weeks.
Chair,
Support
I
that.
agree.
Should we raise hands?
That
think
would
it-
be easier, please.
Yeah, I think if you do a count of the votes would be better. Mark, if you could assist.
Okay, do you want to, I can see hands going up, but are these the hands in favour of the 12-week consultation period?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yes.
So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Yes.
6, 7, 8, 9.
Excuse me,
So
Chair,
that's-
I am able to raise my hand, but I'm in favour of it.
Right, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 in favour. Any against, please? Could you
Hang
all,
on, can you-
yeah. So, Councillor Williams, that's an historic hand, as is Councillor Barrow. Councillor Malcolm James.
In favour?
Yeah, I think that's pretty unanimous, Chair. I can't see anyone against that.
right, okay.
Right, and Chair, if you then want to take a vote on each, because I think there's a couple of decisions you may need to make about the medical and different things. So if you want to take it in part, Mark can help you with the count.
Right, okay.
Okay. Okay, Chair, if the further recommendations of the report, if members are in favour, can you show by hand acknowledgement, please? Yeah, that's unanimous, Chair. 11 hands in favour.
Thank you.
Anyone against? Your hand is up, Chair, but
I
no
know,
one
I
yeah.
trying to get it down.
Yeah, I think that's unanimous. I see no one against that. The rest of the
Right.
recommendation of the report, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, there's no other. Did that cover the first condition as well about the record keeping?
No, Mark, you're supposed to have taken it in two parts, isn't it? Let me get it's got two decisions to make, isn't it? Mark?
Sorry, Chair. I've got the report in front of me at the moment.
No, I'm trying to get mine up now. Let's have a look. This has got. Hang on, I've got to get it up now. Right, so there's the recommendation is 1 and 2, so you need to take a vote on 1 and 2.
Right, so the first one then was the record keeping.
Yes, so you've taken a vote on that, have you?
Yeah.
So it's the next one is the in relation to amending the Hackney Carriage conditions to notify the council in writing, obviously if they receive a caution or if they've been arrested for anything.
Right.
So that's
Does
number
everyone
2.
understand that one yet?
And also it's the health, that contains the health condition one as well.
So members all in favour of those recommendations as read out by the legal
number
officer,
2.
please? Number 2,
Yeah,
that's
Yeah.
carried unanimous, Chair.
yes, it is, yeah.
Yeah,
No one against? No. Is that it?
That's it then, that's the
That's it.
recommendations, yeah.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Andrea.
Okay, that's it. Do you want to say anything else now, Andrea?
No, that's it, that concludes that one.
Right, Kirsty, is there anything else you wanted to say?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, I don't have any other urgent items, so that's it. So I'll just close the meeting now. Thank you all very much.